This is the MPC sample. I've had it for 2 days, and I want to kind of give you guys a general overview of what I've learned so far as someone who has not had a sampler at all ever before. So there's the boot up screen. Super sick. Very sick. So this is the first things I kind of noticed about it though. There's a little tiny speck in the screen. You can see it at the bottom of that club. Actually, I don't have to turn it off. See that? That's actually underneath the screen. So that kind of bothered me at first. Okay, so MPCs are, I guess, traditionally meant to be plugged in. This has a little speaker on it. So that was something I was excited about with the KO2 and stuff like that, is that it's just like, it's kind of a toy as well. So you can kind of take it everywhere. And, you know, you can make cool sounding things without having headphones. When I first turned it on, I didn't realize how quiet it was going to be. And this is all the way up. What scared me at first was that this was going to be the maximum volume. I don't know what the percentage is because it's kind of not a full circle, but yeah, I'm guessing 20% here. It's just extremely quiet. So the thing that you have to do, or what I was doing, was I was clicking on this, and then you move this up and down. It moves this little line up and down, and then you can change the volume to be a lot higher, so that whenever it's actually at this loud volume, you can hear it super clear through the little speaker. But if you press this one, now notice the lights here. This is the first thing I noticed, was that even as hard as I'm tapping these, it's only hitting the second line. So you have to kind of adjust this velocity or extra gain here, kit volume, whatever that might be called in the MPC world. How you fix that is you go to mix up here, and you go to shift, then you turn this knob. I'm trying to do this with one hand. And all the way, you can see it's a little better. These are still the quiet samples up here. These are the two loud ones. But if I turn this up, it sounds way louder. So if you're gonna be playing this through the speaker at first and just kind of playing around with it, just use that to kind of figure that out. Have no fear. You can turn it up. You just have to use this thingy. I tried a little bit on the headphones. It sounds amazing for the headphones, so that helps a little bit for your own perception of how good the music is that you're making. Another thing I noticed is that this little pad down here is a little bit soft, which is probably a traditional MPC thing. And I was seeing some YouTube videos online of people kind of playing these and then kind of hitting this in between. And that makes sense. Or I guess it's not really a place to rest your hands, I guess, unless you're doing something like this, but that's kind of cool. It's unique, and I feel like it's durable. Another thing I noticed right off the jump is that this tab tempo button is always blinking. I think that's awesome. It is something at first that was a little distracting to me, that I wasn't aware if that was going to be something I could turn off in some settings menu. Which leads me to my next point, which is that I don't know if there is a settings menu, which is pretty interesting. You know, it's just kind of a thing to think through. So how you update this thing is super interesting too. The way you update it is you go to MCP, see, I already messed it up, MPC-local, or MPC-sample.local. And then you press the button, it'll download and it'll update using the screen on your computer. You can see the progress, and then you'll see this turn off. You just don't unplug it during that entire process and it updates. So that's another thing to know. So now let's get into more of the actual process things. I've talked about the physical things already in this. So this is sort of the next section of this video. The actual creative process for this is very interesting. And if you've used an MPC before, I wanted to call it MCP again. That's crazy. I know why. Model Context Protocol. I've been saying that for the past like month, and now I'm saying MPC, so it's almost the same. But anyways, getting into the process for this is really interesting. So as soon as I booted it on, I just immediately started playing some cool stuff. And that's just because the demos and stuff they have loaded up feel really nice to kind of play around with. And that's what you can accomplish with something like this. You get this tactile feeling of making something, which is really appealing, coming from just the computer workflow that I'm used to. So the learning curve so far has been not that drastic. Like, it's taking me a little while to get used to remembering that these are all buttons that I can activate with the shift button. The shift button is probably your most critical tool that you're going to be pressing all the time. Yeah, that's, I mean, other than the encoder, you use the encoder pretty often too. It's awesome how intuitive it is. Pretty much everything you tweak with these knobs, you can tweak with this knob. Afterwards, it automatically links everything's super intuitive, works like right out of the box, just feels right. And that's what I really like about it so far. But in comparison to something like the KO2, the punch-in effects, I'm just comparing it against what I've seen off the videos, but the punch-in effects are kind of all not amazing sounding to me. Like they don't make it feel really cool, even in a live performance. And that's probably the only place that I would use them is in a live performance, or if I added just like one little effect. This is the pad effects. You can, if you're playing something, you can hold this down. It's just not very, it's not a very appealing sound to me. All these sound like the beat is messing up. I like beat repeat. It's kind of fun. So yeah, they're not bad. But I just don't see myself using them very often. The knob effects seem better. They seem like you can actually apply them over time. I haven't got into resampling. That's how low level I am with this, is I don't really understand how to implement resampling into the workflow yet. So day 2, that's where I'm at. I've only been able to work on it for maybe 2 hours so far, so I haven't had a ton of experience, but I've gotten a little used to the chop feature, to the sample features, to changing the input, I even tried the step edit. I got into that a little bit, so that's kind of interesting. I don't totally understand that yet, but so this is the sequence step edit. So you press shift sequence. There's the step edit, and then you can see. So this is showing basically what's happening at every sort of step of the way when they're played. You can see down to the, I guess, millisecond or whatever that is. Or millibeat. I don't know what you'd call that, but that's kind of cool. I haven't really messed with the quantize. All this stuff seems so foreign to me too. Like watching videos of this stuff before I got this thing, I was like, I don't understand anything that I'm seeing. So I don't know if that helps or not to see it. But once you get your hands on it, start playing with it, then you start to, everything clicks pretty well. If you're wondering how long it's going to take to really get into this thing, it's probably going to take you a couple days of really kind of exploring everything if you're coming from someone who doesn't know an MPC workflow at all. I feel like everyone talks about like the most obvious things on YouTube, which is like the way it looks and the way the pads feel and the way the this is so cool and the encoder is so nice and the button's nice and the vibe is so nice and all these things. And I feel like that's kind of, you're kind of missing a lot of what this thing is by only talking about stuff that you can pretty much visibly see through the videos anyway. So that's why I figured it would make sense to kind of look at it from my perspective as someone who hasn't really looked at it, anything like this. I don't own any other really pieces of equipment like this. I have just like pianos, digital piano, MIDI keyboards. You know, I have some drum pads on like an FL Key MIDI keyboard and stuff like that. And my workflow is mainly melodic sound based. So I will play like a few chords on the piano. I'll catch this vibe, and then I'll start like laying down sort of vocal humming until I find this like nice spot that I want to work in. And then I add like a lot of effects to kind of get that feeling that I want. You know, compress the vocal, and kind of, you know, just dial that in, and then I move on to the other elements. So this is a totally different workflow for me. This is, I'm not used to drumming and that sort of thing. I have like 2 or 3 patterns that I keep reverting to while I'm playing this, but it's pretty cool because once you learn those, you kind of have them and you can use those moving forward. So that's something that I think is going to be very useful for me, coming from someone who works mainly with melodic things. One thing that I really want to figure out is the actual sample warping and pitch sampling and stuff like that. So this is something that I'm not super keen on. You need to know music theory to kind of get into this sort of thing, sort of sampling overall, and then taking these chops and making it sound good. And that's something that I've tried with this tune feature, and I'm kind of struggling with, because even putting it on the 16 levels, a lot of it doesn't sound very musical. I think it really has to be locked into that note in order to combine it with, you know, other random samples and stuff like that. And that's something that I haven't really found a good workflow for. So if you know anything about that, throw that in the comments so that I can figure out how to actually improve my process with that, because I don't really totally understand how to do that sort of stuff. I just love kind of chopping stuff up and playing things back and forth until something sounds awesome. And then starting from there is a great feeling. So that's sort of my overall workflow that I intend to use with this, is that I'm just going to find really cool samples or melodies and then kind of just chop them until I hear something that sounds really cool that I can build everything else off of. And that I feel like is doable, because then you can throw drums on it and stuff like that you can kind of tune to sound right pretty easily. If there's a way to kind of reverse engineer the workflow of scales and keys and things like that, that would be incredible to be able to use that in this. I don't think they have anything like that built in. I think you need a better or bigger MPC for that, but I'm sure there's a workaround, and I'm sure I'm going to figure out something for that as well. Something that you can't see in the video is that this feels really heavy and dense, and everything feels really nice on this machine. And that's something that people do mention in other videos, but as something that if you're looking into buying this, you would want to know, that is a great thing to know. And it feels awesome so far. The knobs feel great. It just feels like it's really well put together. So that's a good thing, other than that little speck that's under the screen there. I've had this thing for such a short period of time that I haven't even really looked at all of the design and stuff like that, and just like how cool it is as a piece of equipment. But I think that's a lot of the appeal of this thing, is that it's just designed so well. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted the KO2 as well. But you have such like it has such a cool vibe to it, just from the looks and stuff. Not to kind of rehash the same points that I was talking about weren't as useful. But yeah, that's sort of my initial impressions of the MPC sample, the MCP sample. So if there's anything about this thing, is that it feels like a toy and an experience that you want to constantly use. And that is a huge advantage whenever you're trying to make something. You want to feel good about what you're making. You don't want to get stuck in choosing a sound or doing a thing. You want to just be able to click a few buttons, have it loaded up, and just start going. And that, just being able to keep that movement going is one of the main appeals of something like this. So I'm excited to see how well I can implement it into my process. And yeah, that's sort of my first impressions of the MCP sample. Going to be putting out a ton of content on sort of how that goes, so that you can see my progress. So the only other thing I'll talk about is sort of the navigation. Like it's taken me a second to realize how to change the tempo. You have to just hold this down and turn the knob. And like it's very simple, but like because it says tap tempo and it's blinking, I always just try to tap first. And that's like a day one issue. But now that it's day two, literally, you hold it down, you change it. It's easy. That's how intuitive this stuff is. Everything starts to make sense. You just have to remember all the functionality that is there. That like there's some stuff that I just haven't used yet, like the half sequence, double speed. Like I don't know. Even resample and song I haven't used yet. The loop I haven't really figured out how to use. I've played around with the reverse a little bit. The main screens that you'll see are just sample, sequence, and chop, which is like a sub screen of the sample screen. So really just these two modes are everything that you have to figure out, and then the things that affect the modes, the pad play, muting, the looping, the 16 types, There's so much to kind of learn and just like feel out with this thing that I think is so useful. But mainly the process is what I think you can improve with your workflows. I also have this theory that people who have this sort of gear, like they kind of suck at music, and that's kind of a bad theory. But that kind of voice in your head where you're like, oh, that's like, I see a lot of the KO2 videos, and I'm like, this kind of sucks. Like, the same thing with the pocket operator. It's that same feeling where it's like, this is a weird thing. It's fun to play, but it's a weird thing. It doesn't sound super interesting to listen to. It just sounds like something that's just annoying and looping. And so there's an entire art form to this thing that has to be kind of figured out. And I think there is different ways of using this tool to make really good music. But I think there are incredible pad players and MPC people out there. So not knocking anyone who has an MPC or KO2, but there's like a feeling that I get whenever I hear some of the chops and loops these people make, that I'm like, oh no, they're just like making an annoying chopped up thing. And that's not where I want to take this. But if you're having fun, that's what you should do. So not hating, but there's a thing there for sure. But yeah, let me know what videos you want to see in the future for this thing. If you have comments about how I can improve my whole process, totally drop that. And yeah, let me know what you think about all that sort of stuff about, should people use this as a tool to make great music? Are people just kind of like overusing things like this to have fun and not make great music, and then claim to make great music with it because they're having fun? Yeah, that's a fun conversation to have. Probably not a great conversation. Probably people are going to hate me for that, but oh well. Go ahead and hash that out in the comments. I feel like that's great. I don't think the speaker does pretty much suck, but it is loud enough, so that's a good thing. So yeah, that's the whole video. Let me know what y'all think, and more videos to come pretty soon.